Okay, this is number 11 for my wall paintings. This one is also less about things I find interesting, but rather something interesting about myself. Only it isn't that interesting, but that's kind of my point. The subject for the painting has to do with the smallish city I live in. I always thought this place to be mundane and boring, and for as long as I can remember, ever since being a little kid, I've wanted to move away onto bigger and better places. But as I've gotten older, I found that I have a deeper respect for this area, and its history and its quirks. It definitely isn't the best city out there. In fact, it has a lot of its own issues. But having grown up here, I feel like I could see it and its residents in a more positive light, because these are the people and the places that hold special meaning to me, regardless of what other people think. The city in question is Crawfordsville, Indiana, and hopefully I didn't just dox myself saying that, but the reason I went ahead and just said the name, because the painting is about the cryptid that is attached to the city's history, and it's called the Crawfordsville Monster, so it'd be hard to hide where it's from. I personally call it the Crawfordsville Cryptid, because that just sounds better, but it's an interesting little bit of lore this place has that makes it special compared to other small towns, and yet no one has really heard of this place. Rightfully so. It's only a town of about 16,000 people, but it makes me think of just how many other places exist around me with just as much lore and fun details that I would never know about because I'm not from there and don't have a reason to be attached to that place. But it's an idea that I've always found fun, that there's so much out there, even within my own backyard, that I still know nothing about. There's still so much to explore, even in a place as kinda bland as Indiana. The cryptid is supposed to be a flapping, long, snake-like mass with fins and a single fiery eyeball. A few different people attested to seeing it, and it probably did exist, but was actually most likely to be a flock of killdeer birds, disorientated by the newly installed electric streetlights. This was back in 1891, so they were a new phenomenon. It's described as white, but I always imagined it as a black shadowy figure, like a flock of birds would look like against the sky. I also gave it a more wispy appearance, with the idea that the extra blobs may be stray birds in the flock. And I think it was early morning when it was spotted, but mostly I just like the dawn and dusk color schemes. I also tried to invoke the idea of ancient Chinese dragon paintings, because that's almost what this is. But it's not the only cryptid in Indiana. There's also a giant snapping turtle-like monster called the Beast of Bosco, aka, as nicknamed by the locals, Oscar. A lot of American cryptids are just big animals. Like, there's also a really big snake and a really big catfish. I also like the Gollywampus, because that's just a fun name to say. It's part of the large number of cryptids that just fall under really hairy man. I also like it because it's just some Boy Scouts hazing younger members and convincing them that there were monsters in the woods. And I wonder how many other ghost and monster stories are just that, a prank that becomes immortalized as a creature tale. I feel like cryptids in general feel like a nice way to add some sort of whimsy and fun to local history, especially when a lot of history is sucky or sad. Like, another thing our town is known for historically is one of the only still standing rotary jails, which had cells around a rotating platform, and so they would just need to rotate it to the cell that they wanted to let the prisoners out of, with no guard interaction. And not this one, but another rotary jail had been known to crush arms and even heads of prisoners caught when the wall started rotating, which is horrific. And our jail is most well known for a botched public execution back when people still went to watch those for fun, I guess? Because there truly was nothing else to do back then. But then there are a bunch of horrified accounts of people who came to watch it, only for the noose to break, I think, twice, and for the guy to be begging to just be let go. And even the weirdos who went to watch public executions for fun said it was just awful. So, if the topics for local history is either having a real man go through one of the most horrible deaths ever, or the fun, floppy, flapping, flying snake tentacle monster, I'm going to be more happy talking about the latter. But there's even more history than that around here. Like, the guy who wrote Ben-Hur lived here, and his study is still open. It's something like a museum now. But even aside to major claims of fame, it's just cool to go back through and see what life was like for the people standing in the very same spot as I am 100 or 200 years ago. Like, around the bigger city of Crawfordsville, there are these smaller rural towns, and each one used to have these beautiful school buildings, and each one also had a train station. And I used to live in one of these small towns before moving closer to the city of Crawfordsville, and the town was so small it hardly shows up on a map, but it was bustling back in the day, with a train station and a hotel, and back then, the elementary school used to be a college, and it was a beautiful building, but eventually it was torn down because the cost to maintain it was too much. Same for the school in the town over, and I wonder how much history and beautiful architecture has been lost just because it got too expensive to maintain. But when they remodeled the elementary school I used to go to, they kept the gym, and it was actually originally chosen to be the locations they shot the movie Hoosiers, but it was changed to be somewhere else. And I wonder if it was chosen, if it would have had a different outcome. Because when I still went there, it shut down, again because of funds, and we had to move schools, and the gym and the building as a whole was left in a bit of a state of disrepair until a company bought it and turned it into a venue and storage place. It's a shame seeing such a personal place go and become a glorified warehouse, but at least someone is taking care of the building now. I wonder how many small, lively towns, like my hometown, have had their history lost to time. It's a sad thought to think about, but a lot of the historic stuff is still there, but just isn't utilized in the way it once was. Like, the building the hotel was in is still standing, and there's still remnants of the railroad tracks in the woods, covered in moss. It's actually really pretty. I snuck back there once in elementary school, and we walked along the train tracks. If you can't tell, I have a thing for local history. It's just super cool to think that these towns and locations that are so important to me, but also have been important locations for people who came decades, if not centuries before me. And by focusing on these cool stories, I feel like I've been able to redeem Crawfordsville's reputation in my own eyes. Because even as a kid, this place has kind of had a reputation. I remember as a kid, back when things were more unrestricted on school iPads and laptops, we would look up the Urban Dictionary entry on Crawford's Tucky, which calls the people living here meth-addicted, morbidly obese people who bang their cousins. And that's what I used to look at this place as when I was a jaded kid who wanted to move. Before I realized, like it or not, these are the people and the places that raised me. And I know that these people, despite their flaws, are good people. And that's an insight I think I only have as someone who has lived here. But I like to think I grew up where I did for a reason. In some ways, it made me the person who I am today. And I feel like I owe respect, loyalty, something for the role it played in my life. And on a less philosophical side note, not just Crawfordsville, but Sugar Creek, the creek that runs through it, as a whole has an abnormal amount of crinoid fossils, which are these creatures, most likely sea lilies, which are technically animals, like how coral is also technically an animal. But I like showing people the star feather because it's basically just a sea lily without the stem, and people find it more interesting. But they are from when Earth used to be an ocean, and are probably almost 300 million years old. I have a small collection of them, and I always look for them when we go down to the creek. And that's another unique thing to where I live, and also just so happens to be right up my alley. I like fossils too. But yeah, I liked getting to talk about where I live for a bit. It's about the same as any other small town American city, but has bits that make it unique, and I don't know, I just wanted to encourage people to take a look at their own small towns and try to see them in a different light. I saw a phrase once, bloom where you are planted, aka help the community that raised you, and I always thought it was a nice sentiment, and it's how I've come to feel about this place too. And now I only have 3 more paintings, and I am done with this arch.